Professor Has Problem, Man Q 6.7. Part A asks what happens in equilibrium if you put the tax on the supplier, what happens if you put the tax on the demander, and is there a difference? And the answer is going to be that there is no difference, and we talked about that in lecture. But let's go through it again. If there's a 50-cent tax on suppliers, that's going to raise the supply curve by 50 cents parallel. And we said in lecture why that is, so I won't go over that again. So the supply curve is going to shift up 50 cents parallel, which means there's going to be a new supply price and a new demand price. The demand price is going to be PD1, and that's going to be 50 cents more than the supply price. And we discussed in lecture why that is. Meanwhile, to be in equilibrium, the supply has to equal the demand. Quantity supplied has to equal quantity demand. And so that's where it happens. We have to find equilibrium where the supply price is 50 cents less than the demand price and where the quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. On the other hand, if you put the tax on the demander, then for reasons we discussed in lecture, the demand curve is going to shift down by 50 cents in a parallel fashion. So this new demand curve is D prime, and the curve shifts down by 50 cents. And if you look at it, the new quantity has to be where supply crosses the new demand curve. So that's Q1. It's the same Q1 as before. And the new prices have to be 50 cents apart. So the new demand price is PD1, the new supply price is PS1. And all those are the same. That is, the demand price is the same whether the tax is placed on the demander or the supplier, and the supply price is the same whether the tax is placed on the demander or the supplier. And here's that same diagram drawn more neatly with a computer. You see the supply and the new supply curve is 50 cents higher everywhere. And the new demand curve is 50 cents lower everywhere. And so supply equals demand at Q1, and the supply price and the demand price are the same in both diagrams. There's the supply price, there's the new demand price. And here's that just drawn more neatly. You can see that the supply price is the same in both instances, and the demand price is the same in both instances, and the new quantity after the tax is the same in both instances. So in part A, the answer is it doesn't make any difference whether you put the tax on the supplier or the demander. Another way to look at this, it might be simpler, you don't have to draw so many supply and demand curves, is just to think of the tax as a wedge between the supply and demand curve. In other words, there has to be, supply has to equal demand, quantity supplied has to equal quantity demanded, and there has to be a 50-cent difference between the supply price and the demand price. So you can just take this red wedge here and you can stick it in. It's a 50-cent wedge. And whether the tax is on the supply or demander, it doesn't matter. You still got to find a place where quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. Here it's Q1, and there's a 50-cent wedge. And so that 50-cent wedge shows you the new supply price and new demand price. PD1 is the demand price, PS1 is the supply price. Problem B asks if demand is more elastic or less elastic, how will that affect the effectiveness of making the tax reduce the quantity? Well, here's the diagram. If demand is less elastic, then here's the wedge, and we see the quantity is Q1. If demand is more elastic, we get the same 50-cent wedge, but quantity reduces even more. So more elastic, the answer is more elastic implies more effective. At lowering Q. Now, the reason this is happening is because of substitutability. More elastic means there are better substitutes. If people have good substitutes for driving their car and using gasoline, more elastic means better substitutes. If people can flee the market pretty easily, in other words, people are willing to ride the bus or ride their bicycles, then of course the way they're going to react to an increase in the demand price because of the tax is just to leave the market. And so if demand is elastic, it means that people are willing to ride their bikes or ride the bus or walk, and therefore with more elastic demand it's more effective to put on a tax in order to reduce the quantity. Part C asks whether consumers are helped or hurt. Well, I mean, the demand price went up, so consumers are hurt. It asks, are producers helped or hurt? Well, the supply price went down, so producers are hurt. So a tax hurts both kinds of agents, economic agents that participate in the market, both consumers and producers.